I joined the Army specifically to not be in the home family business of construction. When I was 12 years old, I had been journaling something about how I was going to discover a business that hardly anyone else in the world was doing.
Welcome to Veteran Voices, SITREP, with your hosts, Tom and Chris Faust.
Welcome to Veteran Voices. I am your co-host, Tom Faust. I'm here with my son, Chris. And today we have with us our guest, Gail Marie Beckman. And she is a veteran, a self-proclaimed lifelong word nerd. And to use a word that I see in your little name at the bottom of the screen there that I just learned today, a cruciverbalist, which is a person who creates crossword puzzles. And potentially a person who also likes to do crossword puzzles, I guess. But so, Gail, welcome. It's great to have you here with us. Can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, about your military experience, and on from there?
Okay. Well, I went in the Army right out of high school. I was 18. I had 2 months off between high school and basic training. But I joined the Army specifically to not be in the home family business of construction. Mm-hmm. My brothers and I both worked for my dad even before they had the child labor laws and such. So we were always the grunts before military, I would say. But anyhow, I joined from Placerville, California, and was stationed in Baumholder, Germany, and served just under 2 years. And I met my husband at the time, and I had my son over in Germany. So, but yeah, I had gotten out of the Army at 20 years old. So it was in peacetime, 78 to 80. But I had wanted to join to learn a trade, be paid for something that I saw people going through 4 years of college and coming out and couldn't work as anything but a dishwasher because they wanted experience. So what better experience than just to go in the military?
So what kind of lessons or values from your service do you still carry with you today?
That not everyone cares about organization the same way you might. I did learn that a lot of people don't care about spelling the way I do either. But still, I was in supply and service. It was when you had the key punch cards and the little holes were punched in them. I ran the IBM 029. So I got one of the first computers before they were actually computers. It was a whole trailer set up as a supply center that could be mobile. And then you had the card sorter, and it was all sorted by the little holes. And if you drop a whole deck of the cards, you've lost a lot of time because you have to sort them like 36 times in the card sorter to get them back in order. But it was a neat experience because you'd actually put a card on the spindle and create your program just based on where it stopped. So that's how a lot of people got their paychecks. Remember the envelopes that say do not fold, spindle, or destroy or something when you'd get a IRS check but that was the military pay too in Germany. So anyway, it was very interesting. I learned a lot at the ground level. So
well, that's cool. Yeah, I'm actually quite familiar with computer punch cards. I'm a software developer by trade, but when I was in school, it was back in 1979, and it was all on punch cards. It was still exciting. Actually, I actually have right here a little jar of punches that I saved.
Oh my goodness, that's something else.
Yeah. So anyway, it's a little memorabilia from that.
I still have my can opener.
Oh, a P38?
P38. It's on my keychain. Yep.
Those are great.
Came in handy a couple times when you don't have a can opener and need one. Hey.
Yeah, especially like camping and things like that. Yeah.
Yep.
So back to business here. So you've been creating crossword puzzles, it says, since 1991 is what I have in my notes.
Yep.
I'm wondering how you got started creating crossword puzzles.
I, at the time, was a manager for a cable television place where we had the slider boxes and remotes, and we just had 6 pay channels. Otherwise, you got your cable TV channels 2 through 13. So yeah, it was very early in the business. And my pet peeve was spelling, and the work orders would come back saying cable with EL spelled, even if it was on the top of the page. So I realized, okay, you have to spell everything right to complete a crossword. So my first crossword was cable TV technical terms to make sure everyone could spell. And it went to 13 other cable companies we were affiliated with through King 5. And it was, I got feedback like, how did you do this? I never knew a person who could create a crossword, and I never knew I could either. And then someone asked me to do one about their dad. So that's where that part started. And pretty soon magazines and weddings and you name it. So.
Nice. And was that kind of like was there a specific moment or experience that, inspired you to turn this into a full-fledged career?
Well, I was recalling that when I was 12 years old, I had been journaling something about how I was going to discover a business that hardly anyone else in the world was doing. And so it kind of fell into place. I had my aha moments when I just started getting requests for crosswords, automotive magazine, and this, a Chamber of Commerce event. And it just kept going from there. And toughest part was learning how to charge with nothing to follow. So I very undercharged myself. I had a marketing guy say, hey, you're not charging near enough for what you're doing for these people. So that was helpful. But yeah, it was something I had told myself when I was young that I'd have something really, really unique. So I've taken off with it.
Nice. Guessing you've done, puzzles, everything, from, birthdays to big brands. What are some of the most memorable projects that you've ever worked on?
One would be writing a puzzle for the Purina Corporation, and they wanted their managers to learn the latest ingredients and effectiveness of horse chow. And I had to sign an NDA saying I wouldn't share that with anyone that I knew. Couldn't think of anyone who would want those ingredients, but still, it was very interesting to do a training puzzle at that level. And I did one for Johns Hopkins website early on, and it was gastrointestinal diseases, and something I never had an ask for again. So you just never know what people want.
I guess you've done a number of personal puzzles. Like I think you mentioned that you did one for your grandmother's 90th birthday, for instance. How does, I don't, whether it's in the process of creating or just how you feel about it, how does that differ from doing some for a business versus a fun one for a family member or something like that?
Well, I'll give you an example. This one gal that commissioned me to write a crossword for her grandparents, about her grandparents, who weren't going to be there that Christmas. They had both passed away. So it was going to be their first family gathering without them. But she was able to throw in clues about herself being the favorite this and that. I was the favorite grandchild, or, made sure that everything that was good related back to her, and made everybody laugh and ease the moments of their time without them, but play a good remember when. So it was a family memory thing. And that really is something you just can't, AI can't just do, so you work with the person and bring out the funny stories and the examples and such, so that it really personalizes it.
So it kind of works in a similar way to the corporate one then, in that sense, where they give you some subject matter and then you find a way to put that into the puzzle, I guess.
Yes, I have a personalized worksheet for that, and I give examples of the puzzles so that people can see how it looks in the end. They can send me photographs and choose how they want it. And most people just agree with me on the layout and the clues I choose, and work with me if they just say, okay, mom's sister. And it's like, no, we need like an occupation. What was a hobby, or what was she known for in her life? Something that's going to make her stand out from the rest of the family. You just don't want to say sister. So, a little working back and forth, even with the corporations as well. There's like when I wrote some puzzles for Humana, I think it had to be approved by 6 different people, each puzzle. Wow. So yeah, it just depends on where it is and how many people have to have their hands on it.
Mm-hmm.
So how does it how does it work if you like for companies, if you how does it work to suggest puzzles to be used as like a contest or an engagement tool?
Well, coming up in September in Las Vegas is a business expo for it's local commerce. And what I'm doing with them is I'm creating a word search puzzle where the first 30 businesses that had signed up will have their names in the puzzle. You have to go to their booth to get a word that you find in the puzzle. When you get all your words, you can sit down, work the puzzle, and then enter it as a drawing for prizes. So it gets them really talking to the business people that made the effort of joining early and that kind of thing. So, and the interactive part. And I did get to watch that in a local city that no one knew me, about an hour away, but I went through the Chamber of Commerce and did it for their business expo and could watch it in action, like being a secret shopper. So that was very fun to see people going around and being competitive and enjoying interacting a little bit more with those businesses.
So, I'm just wondering, do you ever find that puzzles, crossword puzzles and such, have like a therapeutic or value, memory boosting? I know working with words is I guess known to help with memory and cognitive function.
Yes, it's also an escape that people might not realize, and that's why the print version is what most people want. Some people only choose a magazine if there's a crossword or word search in it, because they know they want to sit back in an easy chair, escape life for a little while, get off their electronics and work a puzzle. Because when you're thinking up words, you're not thinking about, what bills are due next week or whatever it is. So it's a miniature escape, and it also does get your memory going, get that Rolodex in your head, spinning to see if you remember certain things. And my key too is I try to do a whole subject. I don't worry about symmetry of a puzzle. Like every newspaper puzzle is symmetrical, and they worry about a pattern and certain rules. Well, I break all those rules because I see that the client or the reader wants a whole subject or something they know, and people enjoy like everything's about. I just wrote one that was a cartoon puzzle. It's called Animated Animals for my upcoming puzzle book, which is called Fur and Feathers, Crosswords and More. So this one's a crossword, and it's got like Bugs Bunny and Kermit the Frog and you name it. It's every kind of animal that was in the top 30 or 40. So some of those are just really fun to write. So,
and just to kind of follow up with that, do you think that there's a particular benefit for veterans, people who maybe are struggling since leaving military service, getting back? Is PTSD, things like that. Do you think there's a benefit in that sense?
Yes, especially if they have any kind of hobby and there's a subject puzzle on something they know that's outside of, just standard everyday memory. I do believe getting outside of your regular thought process by looking at someone else's and trying to figure out something and solve it gets you out of yourself a little bit. And I did also create a word search puzzle for the Be the One program through the American Legion. I donated it to all military that I've heard of and seen, or any kind of emails I get. I send it back to them to use for free, because it has to do with be the one to call or talk to a veteran or notice something wrong to help save veterans from depression and suicide and such. So I have that available to everyone for free. Just an FYI. But that's kind of that's one thing I tried to do to help, do a little bit of help. A reinforcement of information is basically how these puzzles work. So something like that I thought was a good give.
Yeah, no, I read a lot too. I like anything with words, so trying to keep my mind sharp as well. But I'm sure there's people that buy that get the New York Times paper just for the crosswords.
Right. Yeah, and those people are considered cruciverbalists that can finish that in pen. So they're known to people. And there is another language when it comes to the symmetrical puzzles you find in the paper, because you're going to use the words that make their theme words work. They'll have a certain layout of what they want, and then all the filler words are going to be words you might not speak in everyday language. So there's these rivers somewhere that no one would have ever heard of unless they do crosswords. That's the kind of stuff that people get frustrated, because then there's a lot they can't finish. but that's where I steer away from that. And the size of puzzles. I like to make sure the grids are big enough to write in, not fit 4 Sunday crosswords and make them smaller and smaller. So you have to use the sharpest of pencils and a magnifying glass.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That's good for us older folks who, need the glasses and need the reading section down here, right?
Are there any sort of other, puzzles that you've worked on that touch themes like mental health, resilience, community building, stuff like that?
The series I did for Humana had some educational puzzles in that realm. And I just put out my last puzzle book I put out through Barnes and Noble print on demand is called Mind, Body, Crosswords and More. And that is all health and wellness. A lot of them I wrote for Medical Post over the years, magazines and stuff I wrote for over the past 33 years. I retain the copyright unless they specifically buy it from me. So I've put them into subject puzzles. So yeah, I've got one whole puzzle book that will reflect on different mind, body, ways you can help yourself, better eating, certain exercises, things like that. So, and then I'll have people ask me for specific things, with whatever they're working on. And it could be something with a workshop and it could have to do with mental health. So,
All right. So, what do you have coming up? Are there any kind of new puzzle formats or collaborations that you have in the works right now that you feel like talking about?
I just added a couple magazines to do puzzles for. One's a quarterly and one's a monthly, so that was nice. And I mentioned the Barnes and Noble print on demand puzzle books. Those you can order right from Barnes and Noble online, and there's one on cannabis, one on food and drink, and then the one I'm currently working on, I mentioned, was fur and feather. So it's all the animals and birds and such puzzles I've written over the years, all put together in a puzzle book. So I'm hoping to get that out there, promote. I did a book signing in Vegas on Sunday. It was at Mount Charleston, so it's 30 degrees cooler. It's about 6,000 feet above Las Vegas. But we had a lot of attendance. I was one of 30 authors, and we all had our books, and I was the only puzzle book person. But I called it 29 authors and me, 29 real authors, because I feel like it takes a lot more research to write a book than a puzzle book. But then again, I do research on each puzzle, so can't quite knock that.
It's just different. I don't think it's less. It's just different.
Right. And they're much lighter than people's hardback books.
So if a veteran listening today, or even, family members of one, wanted a puzzle made about, their life or story, or the veteran's life or story, how would they, go about, getting started with you to get one of those made?
Simply emailing or contact me through LinkedIn. I can send a personalized worksheet and some examples. And if they want to make it a surprise, a lot of people send it off to other family members to get their input, like sisters and cousins and different things. So you get other people's ideas of what clues should be or who not to leave out, that kind of thing. So, I help them along the path of it. It's always fun to fit everything in there and just hear. I mean, it's nice to hear back too. A lot of people will tell me how it went at their event and such. And so just hearing those stories, it's like, yes, it really made a difference, because you got grandma who has everything. She might not have had a puzzle written about her life that she can proudly hang on her hallway wall, So, it's very gratifying doing that. I did Betty White's crossword, actually, her 99th birthday, not knowing she wouldn't make it to 100, but I had heard about an interview. Well, I listened to an interview just during COVID, that she was talking about how she had befriended a couple ducks and this and that, and she was getting along nicely. And then she was excited to show that her name was in a crossword puzzle in either People Magazine or TV Guide, and she was showing it. And I went, oh, I can beat that. So I got in touch with her agent and offered it for absolutely no charge. I just wanted to let her know someone could write a puzzle about her whole life. So I did all the research and Wikipedia and all this and that, and stuff about her shows, and especially the two ducks, and made sure that the agent was able to give it to her personally. And he said he would. So that worked out really nicely, and didn't hear back about it, but who knows? it was given to her as a gift.
Mm-hmm.
So that was fun.
That's really cool, though.
Yeah. So, looking back over I guess you said 33 years or something of this in your service.
Yeah.
What do you think you would want to leave like as a legacy going forward?
I have to admit that the puzzle book idea came only because my two children have no interest in writing or learning how to write crossword puzzles, and one can't spell anyway. So that's what I can leave them. It would be nice to find someone who's interested in learning this, but I still handwrite all my puzzles with graph paper and pencil and don't intend to change that. Every one I've ever written, I've plugged in afterwards into a program or typed up the word search with the letter space, and all that kind of stuff. So I've laid everything out myself and keep my mind active by handwriting the puzzles. So it's very gratifying when you can get everything working the way you want. But yeah, I guess just to have, if I put together like the celebrity puzzle books and just have a bunch of things that I've done over the years and keep putting together books that people can keep ordering forever on Barnes and Noble, that would take care of the whole subject puzzle book and breaking all the rules thing.
Okay.
Nice. And then if you could give one piece of advice to a veteran thinking about turning their passion into a business, what would it be?
Be willing to step out of that comfort zone. It's going to make you nervous. Learn how to talk in front of people. If you've got a passion and you've got a story to tell, it gets easier and easier to tell it to people. So get out and network with people. In-person business networking, even on Zoom, it can help to, help you tell your story and keep yourself excited about your passion. It helps me when I'm, writing for a few hours and just kind of feeling, okay, what's my next step and this and that. And I have to be reminded sometimes that what I do is pretty cool. And I get people every couple of days saying, wow, I've never heard of this. And that helps remind me that I am doing something very different. But yeah, follow it, keep going. Even if you have to do it part-time at first, make sure it's scheduled into your day.
Nice. That's really good advice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. We will include with this interview any links you want to give us that people can go to find copies of your book to order or, any kind of information like that. In any case, I was just saying we'll include links so for people to be able to follow up and get some information if they want to hire you to do something or if they just want to find your puzzle books to buy online. That either way, we'd love to do that. I think you mentioned in our pre-interview that you had a veteran puzzle that you could share with our audience.
Yes.
If you have that, we can share that with people as well, and that'd be
okay. Yeah, cool. That's the one word search I had mentioned.
Okay, great.
It helps with suicide prevention.
Okay, we'll share that as well.
Very good.
So something I'm going to try here, which this will be the first time, but I wanted to come up with a question that whenever we interview somebody, we can, kind of always have the same question at the end. Okay. And so you get to be the first. And so it's what is one way we as a society could do to better support those transitioning from military service to civilian life?
Well, encourage them to get their health checked and keep on it. I use the VA system, and you have to take over your own medical. Anyone needs to do that. They have to be the follow-up themselves. That's one thing I've heard a lot of, especially with elderly veterans, that my appointment isn't for 4 months. And they just accept that, and you don't have to, and that kind of thing. So when you know something's wrong, keep at it, and just keep your health up, and also try to eat well, exercise, do all the things to make you feel good, and follow the passion at the same time. But yeah, I would say other people is encouraging. Go to the doctor. Go get your eyes checked. Make sure your have the proper shoes. Right now I wear toe shoes. I'm 65 years old. I have seen friends younger than me that stumble and fall, and your feet need to have more support than that. And my toe shoes help me use all the muscles in my feet. And when I'm really like going on walking and things, I care about falling, because falling is a big one. So there's all the different things to pay attention to, and to make your own life better. And so husbands and wives of veterans, kids of veterans, encourage that, help them get out and go walking and get in nature and have a active lifestyle as they can. And that'll help them have more joy in their life.
Well, we definitely, I think that's kind of what we have here. So we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to, come talk with us, hang out with us for a bit.
Oh, thank you. This is very fun.
Yeah, and then for everybody else who's watching, tuning in, we do appreciate the time that you take to listen to us ramble on a bit and talk with people and, get the word out, whether it's somebody who might need to hear just a conversation like this or anything, get the word out. We appreciate that. Like, subscribe, follow, everything that you need to keep us up there. So anytime we release something new, you get notified, and then you get to hear all sorts of interesting things like when we talked to Gail today.
Thank you so much.
Okay. It's great to have you. And on that, we will continue this again next time. All right.
All right.
All right. Bye.